They thought the magnification made them invincible. Inside the steel belly of a German tank in Normandy, the world looked 5 times closer and 5 times clearer. But that clarity was about to become a deadly illusion. June 1944, Normandy, France. The hedgerows were thick, ancient walls of earth and tangled roots that had grown for centuries. They divided the farmland into hundreds of tight green corridors, beautiful to a farmer, but to an army, they were a maze. American forces had just landed on the beaches weeks earlier. Now they were pushing inland, slowly, painfully into the Norman countryside. And waiting for them were the German panzer crews. Veterans, disciplined, experienced, confident in their machines. Many of their tanks carried powerful optics, precision glass sights that could magnify the battlefield up to 5 times. Through those lenses, enemy movement appeared closer, sharper, easier to aim at. For a tank gunner, that was an enormous advantage, or at least it seemed that way. Because Normandy was not an open battlefield, it was a trap of visibility. Picture the view from inside a German Panther tank. The gunner presses his eye against the sight. The magnification pulls the distant hedgerow toward him. Leaves, branches, and dirt become crisp and detailed. He scans slowly, searching for movement. Through the lens, the world narrows. The field of view shrinks. Everything outside that small circle of glass simply disappears. And in Normandy, that blind space could hide an entire platoon. American soldiers quickly realized something strange about German tanks. When they stayed still, the tanks often didn't react. Infantry could crawl through the hedgerows, move between gaps, even approach within dangerous distance. Sometimes the turret turret remained perfectly still. The crew inside wasn't lazy, they simply couldn't see. The magnified optics that made long-range targeting deadly accurate also created a tunnel vision effect. A gunner focused through the sight lost awareness of the wider battlefield, and American troops began to exploit it. They moved slowly, quietly, hugging the hedgerows. From outside the tank, visibility was often better than inside it. Infantrymen could peek around branches, crawl through drainage ditches, use the thick greenery as cover. Meanwhile, the German gunner stared through a small magnified circle of glass, searching for distant shapes, looking far away, not nearby. American tank crews noticed it too. Sherman commanders learned that German gunners often stayed locked into their sights while scanning distant terrain. It made them deadly at range, but dangerously unaware of their flanks. So the Americans adapted. Instead of charging straight across open ground, they moved through the maze. Shermans crept along hedgerows. Infantry scouts moved ahead. Sometimes only a few dozen meters separated the two forces. The German tanks waited for targets hundreds of meters away, and suddenly, American tanks appeared almost beside them. By the time the German gunner realized what was happening, it was often too late. Inside the turret, reaction time mattered. A tank crew had to detect the enemy, communicate, rotate the turret, align the gun, and fire. Every second counted. But when a Sherman appeared from a blind angle only 50 meters away, those seconds vanished. One moment the sight showed empty fields. The next moment, an American tank filled the entire lens, and the shot came first. Boom. Armor-piercing shells slammed into German side armor before the turret could fully rotate. The optics helped the gunner see farther, but they prevented him from seeing what was close. This wasn't just theory. Tank crews began reporting the same pattern again and again across the Normandy countryside. German tanks were powerful, their guns were deadly, but they were often caught by surprise at short range. The hedgerows swallowed visibility, and the optics encouraged gunners to focus on distant threats rather than nearby movement. American infantry started working almost like hunters. A bazooka team would move quietly along the hedgerow. They waited, watched. Sometimes they could hear the German engine idling only meters away on the other side of the dirt wall. The tank crew inside scanned distant fields through magnified glass. The infantrymen outside prepared their shot. One quick movement. The bazooka tube rises over the hedge. A flash.
A rocket streaks across the narrow gap. At close range, the shaped charge punches straight through armor. Inside the tank, the blast is catastrophic. Fire, shrapnel, smoke filling the cramped interior. In seconds, the most advanced armored vehicle on the battlefield becomes a burning steel coffin. Not because the crew lacked skill, but because their vision had been narrowed. The Normandy campaign slowly became a brutal education for both sides. German tank commanders began ordering more frequent visual scans outside the optics. Turret commanders leaned out of hatches, despite sniper risks, trying to regain awareness of the battlefield. But the hedgerows continued to complicate everything. The countryside hid movement. Distances were deceptive. A tank might believe it controlled a field, while enemy infantry crawled through the vegetation just meters away. Meanwhile, engineers began modifying their Shermans with crude metal prongs welded to the front. They called them rhino hedgerow cutters. Instead of climbing over hedges and exposing the tank's weak belly armor, the prongs punched straight through the earth walls. Suddenly, Shermans could burst through hedgerows without warning. For a German gunner staring through a magnified optic, that was terrifying. The sight might show empty farmland. Then the entire hedgerow explodes. Dirt flies, branches snap, and a Sherman crashes through only a few meters away. At that distance, magnification becomes useless. The battlefield fills the entire lens. Panic spreads through the turret. Rotate the gun. Faster, faster. But armor warfare often comes down to a single moment. Who fires first? In the tangled maze of Normandy, that moment frequently belonged to the tank that appeared from nowhere. The German optics were not poorly designed. In open terrain, they were among the best in the world. Clear, precise, deadly accurate. But war rarely happens on perfect battlefields. Technology always carries assumptions, and in Normandy, the assumption was visibility. Fields wide enough for long-range engagement, clear lines of sight, predictable approaches. The hedgerows destroyed those assumptions. They turned the battlefield into a series of sudden encounters measured in seconds rather than kilometers. And in that environment, magnified optics could become a psychological trap. They encouraged focus on distant threats, while danger crept closer in silence. By the time many crews realized the problem, the war around them had already adapted. Normandy was not won by a single weapon or a single tactic. It was won by constant adjustment, observation, learning faster than the enemy. American soldiers learned to use the land, to move where machines struggled, to attack from angles the optics couldn't see. And slowly, hedgerow by hedgerow, the Allied advance continued. For the German tankers, the lesson was brutal. Even the clearest lens cannot show you everything, because on the battlefield, the most dangerous enemy is often just outside your field of view.